In this series, we dive deep into the world of Web3, featuring conversations with visionary leaders and experts who are shaping the crypto ecosystem. In today's episode, we're unpacking how digital identity is changing with the rise of Web3 and AI, and how personalization and privacy of these digital identities come into play. But first, a little bit about Altcoin Observer. We're a leading Web3 media publication. We deliver the latest news, trends, and we cover exciting crypto events. We also conduct exclusive interviews with Web3 leaders. Altcoin Observer is the official media partner and community partner for over 25 international crypto events. If you would like to partner with us, please do reach out and let's grow the Web3 community together. Today, we have an incredible panel of Web3 leaders who are shaping the future of the space. Feel free to connect with them on social media by scanning their QR code. First up, we have Nadja Bester. She is an advisor, investor, and attention economy growth specialist. She is an international speaker on blockchain, DeFi, SocialFi, and the host of popular podcast The Future of NFTs that attract over 6,000 listeners weekly. She's also the co-founder of AdLunam, a social fi Web3 investment ecosystem. It consists of an IDO launchpad, a zero to IDO accelerator, and a robust network of over 700 plus partners, friends, investors, and advisors. Next up is One Way So. She's the founder of IKIGUIDE, an AI visionary society. Having spent 15 plus years in media and PR, she's a seasoned expert in AI, Web3, and the metaverse, elevating brands worldwide. She's a sought after speaker, and OneWay has shared her insights at over 100 global conferences. The AI Visionary Society empowers founders to amplify their impact through AI driven strategies. With resources like a publicity academy, exclusive content, and networking, AVIS helps members build influence and achieve global recognition. Our third panelist, Ilia Brovin, is the Chief Growth Officer at Sumsub. He leads strategy, sales, partnerships, and more. With 20 plus years in finance at firms like Hellman and Friedman and Morgan Stanley, Ilia is a seasoned expert in crypto operations and global regulations. Sumsub is a full cycle verification platform serving 2,500 plus clients across fintech, crypto, e commerce, and more. They offer customizable KYC, fraud prevention, and compliance solutions. And some of their clients are Bitpanda, Kaizen Gaming, and TransferGo, just to name a few. And I'm Noella Ferrao. I'm a passionate marketing specialist and I have a background in internal communications, PR events, and I've worked with Web2 giants like Microsoft, Target, and Amazon. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. A few announcements. If you're a Web3 leader or if you know one, listen up. We're launching Web3 Voices. It's the first ever Web3 thought leadership community, and we want you to be a part of it. This is your chance to connect with other top minds in the space, to get featured in interviews at major events where Altcoin Observer is a media partner, and it's your chance to build a strong network. So stay tuned to Altcoin Observer, follow us on LinkedIn, and keep your eye out for that sign up link. All right. Okay, so we have a very special announcement that please do scan the QR code and subscribe for the AI Visionary newsletter. And AdLunam is a proud sponsor of the AI Visionary Society Scholarship Program. This program champions diversity, equity, and innovation in AI and Web3. Congratulations to all the scholarship winners. We can't wait to see what you come up with in the space. Okay, Sumsub unveils Green Flag. This is a digital nation for 627 million people who are excluded from online services like education, healthcare, and employment platforms. Green Flag ranks as the third largest country in the world with a purchasing power of 1.75 trillion USD. And one of our panelists, Nadja Bester, is a nominee for the prestigious Wirex Rising Women in Crypto Awards. Please scan the QR code and vote for Nadja Bester as Best Crypto Influencer. The voting closes today, December 10th. So please do scan the QR code and make sure that your vote counts. All right. Now let's dive into something we're all living with, but don't always think about digital identity. It's more than just your name, your username, your profile picture. It's your entire online presence, your data, and how you journey through this digital universe. Big companies control most of this information, but blockchain technology changes that, giving you control over your digital self. This question is for all our panelists. How would you describe digital identity today? And how is Web3 and AI flipping the script? Nadia, would you like to kick things off?
Sure. First of all, super happy to be here. It's high time that One Way and I have a discussion like this. She's an incredible AI expert. As for Sumsub, the leaders in the field when it comes to KYC and AML, sorry, that was a massive blooper. I'm just going to move on. AML. Ilia, I have to say that every single of your team members that I've met in any country around the world, I've walked away incredibly impressed. So very happy to be here with just amazing people, amazing experts and passionate experts in their fields. I mean, how would I describe digital identity? I think the first question is to ask, what is digital identity, right? We love all sorts of terms, but what do they actually mean? So digital identity is like the sum of your online presence. It is all of your behavioral data, your browsing history, say, it's all your credentials, like your government IDs, your passports. It is your affiliations, like all the different social media profiles that you have. And really just to bring it close to home with a contemporary example, we know that the alleged shooter for the United Healthcare CEO, his digital identity is currently being combed. Every single piece of trail online available about him builds up a picture of who he is. And similarly, that's the case with us as well. Now, as we are going to be just exploring today, you have the Web 2 version. In Web 3, we like to say Web 2, just so we can feel like we're the evolution. But Web 2 being, the traditional systems, whether it's online systems, clearly we are mostly talking about online systems, social media, basically the internet as we know. This is one part of the discussion. The reason this is part of the discussion is because they own our digital identities. It's a centralized platform. All the data are stored there. The authentication and the verification needs to happen through their systems. So you can't go from Facebook to LinkedIn and have the same profile. It's two different things. What Web3 does, and this is why Web3 is significant, because Web3 comes in and says, hey, you are one person. You are not siloed the way your data is. So as a singular person, you should be allowed to own your data. A lot of digital identity is around data, right? You should own your data and you should also be in control of it. If you want to share it with someone, you can. If you want to share only your age with someone without sharing your birth date, they should be able to verify your age without, your birthright being revealed. So really, in a nutshell, there's a lot of things happening online in terms of technology. There's the Web 2 technologies. AI is, I don't know if I'd call AI Web 2. It's certainly very centralized, and that's the issue. So there's a centralized movement of Web 2. There's a centralized movement of AI. And then there's a decentralized movement of Web 3. And that's the significance of today's conversation.
Absolutely. So it looks like this decentralized shift is really putting power back into the hands of the users. One way, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, folks. Amazing panel, and like I have greatest respect for the companies involved. For this topic, right, we are seeing currently in the Web3 space a very clear popularity in AI agents. And we are also seeing in, the Web2 space, so to speak, in the popularity of human-like AIs. And if we combine both trends together, the implication is that increasingly, I believe, in 2025, people will not be able to distinguish easily who is an AI or what is an AI and who is a human being. So, back to the question of how do we describe digital identity? My personal view is that would there be a possibility of seeing AI as an ally? What I mean as an ally is that it is a non-human entity and cannot be regarded as human. And the implication, of course, on digital identity would be that if AI agents become, significant in this topic, then what would be the implication moving forward when we interact with these non-human entities? Would we easily be giving them our data without even knowing the dangers to ourselves? So I think this is the main topic moving forward.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating perspective. And to our audience listening in, if you have any doubts, if you have any questions, do drop your questions in the comment section, and we will be opening up the floor for Q&A at the end. All right. Ilia, could you share your thoughts and shed some light on the regulatory implications of these technologies?
Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and thank you, fellow panelists, for being here. It's a great pleasure. Look, I think the topic that was touched on with decentralization of identity and AI is very much what we deal with on an everyday basis. But from a regulatory perspective, I would say that, look, unfortunately, we still live in a world where regulations are not only Web 2, they are not web-based at all. And in fact, what we are doing today with remote identification is very much sort of just a transfer of what is acceptable offline to the online world in an attempt to replicate it, as in presenting documents and faces. And obviously that creates a lot of opportunity for fraud. That's, we recently published a fraud report which highlights, fourfold rise in fraud, in deepfake detection, in deepfakes, first of all, AI deepfakes. So that means that these sort of methods are very much unreliable, first of all. But why do we need to use them? Well, because today there is no other alternative. So yes, we have the sort of the bright future of fully decentralized and self-sovereign identity, which Nadja has touched upon. But in reality, we have to bridge that with the very, very old school off-chain regulations. So there are some developments that are moving in the right direction. In the EU, there is, the EIDAS 2.0 framework and large-scale pilots of EU digital identity wallets which will bring those identities natively online, allow them to be verified in much more of a SSI-like nature with selective disclosure, and the identities themselves would be issued by the sort of the right authority, so to say. So I think there is a movement in that direction, but it is taking still a long time. So meanwhile, we need to fight and work with all of the difficulties that exist, including being able to detect deepfakes, the voice deepfakes, the face deepfakes. So yeah, and that presents a big challenge which we're fighting with every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a great start to our discussion. I hope everyone in the audience is enjoying the conversation. Please drop an emoji. Let us know what you think. So let's shift gears a little bit. AI offers powerful tools to make digital identities more tailored, more dynamic, but it also raises a lot of questions about data security. One way, with your experience, how do you see AI striking that balance? How can AI improve personalization of digital identities while still addressing these privacy concerns?
I think there's this very popular concept on differential privacy. So basically, we use AI in this context, right, to identify trends without revealing the identities of individual users or individual personas. I think that is super important. Having said that, because the context, before this question, the context was on Web3, right? Actually, I am very curious to hear from the panelists. Uh, what do you think? It feels to me like, because I'm monitoring the Web3 market quite closely recently, and a lot of people are using AI agents like it is NFT. Like it feels very familiar because the trends are like from 2021 when we have the NFT boom. It feels to me like people are just using the word AI agents uh without actually knowing what it means. It feels like a hype kind of movement. So I'm curious about that. But going back to the question once again, how do we I think it really begins with the companies and the projects to have privacy by design from the very beginning and not to exploit other people's user data, which can be a temptation because sometimes it does not work to their benefit. By the way, Ilia, I read the entire Sumsub deepfake report. It was excellent research, and I had the privilege of meeting your colleagues, and I feel like that is spot on because it links very well to the deepfake reports when it says that it seems like the line between what is real and what is blur is increasingly blurring, and experts, or how should I put it, people don't seem to have a aligned discourse when they talk about AI stuff because the definitions are different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think now when it comes to defining legal terms, right? Like we don't have legal terms for, let's say, like a rug pull or a deep fake. So it's going to be very difficult to sort of secure privacy as well of users. And I think companies are going to really be walking that tightrope, balancing innovation and privacy protection. Um, Nadja, you've been a vocal advocate for privacy of digital identity. So, building on what One Way shared, I'd love to hear your take. How does Web3 technology give people more control over their identities?
Yeah, first of all, absolutely incredible insight so far by One Way and Ilia, really just building on everything that they've already touched on. I think, first of all, it's not that I'm an advocate for privacy. I'm an advocate for humans to be empowered. And I think privacy is part of that. We live in a weird time where even the concept of privacy has suddenly become like a dirty concept. You'll often hear people say, oh, I don't care about, these privacy laws that are against me because I have nothing to hide. So, I mean, really, I think the problem for me, and I think Ilia really touched on this so well, we can talk about the solutions. I love to talk about self-sovereignty. Like I can talk about it all day. I'd love to talk about, selective sharing of information via these technologies. I don't think that's really a conversation that, never mind technically, we are ready for. Like if after this call that we have today, if you want to go out and immediately get started in this world and live this alternative lifestyle where you only use these technologies, it's not possible. I would love to live that lifestyle. It doesn't exist yet. We're building it, right? So that's the one thing. But then I think also just touching on what One Way said about, in 2021, it was the NFT craze, and now it's the meme coin / AI craze. It's interesting, this confluence of hype on the one hand, and I mean, hype can be anything. We have hype in Web3, we have hype in other industries. Every industry is hyped, right? Like even politics, like the US election had a whole lot of hype in it. So there's the fact that we are building for the future, but the future is not ready yet. It's that humans are online and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on online that's distracting and keeps us busy and takes our attention. And so really, I think, as One Way said, the conversations have completely diverged from each other, because we can be talking about a topic today in one context, and at the very same time, another group of people could be talking about the exact same topic using the same definition, but that's really, as one way touched on, the definitions are even where the issues are, right? Because we all say AI, but what does AI mean? On the pump.fun journey that some people are on, I mean, they call them devs. Now, any developer in Web3 worth their salt who can do Solidity and Rust, you know, they don't just go on a platform and then launch a meme coin in 2 seconds and suddenly they have the title of dev. So I think there's a lot of sort of fundamental foundational issues that obviously those of us in the Web3 space are working on this. Those in every tech industry, I guess, is working on the issues faced. But really, I think, you know, just kind of to bring it back to the question, how can Web3 empower people? The problem is that people need to understand that they are not empowered. I think that's happened. I think most of the world understands that, you know, the power is not with them. But I don't know how many people understand yet that there are solutions. You know, it's one thing to kind of realize that you're in a cage, but then what's the next step? And so the question really is, when we talk about onboarding, why will people onboard to a decentralized digital identity? Do they understand that it's a solution, that a problem that they are experiencing without knowing it? Do you know what I mean? There's just so many connective tissue between these things. So I think we have to, like, we people in the industry have to talk a lot about what this all means and how to mitigate it. But I feel like the solution for the average person needs to be much, much easier and simpler. And perhaps that's going to happen through AI, because deep fakes, and this is my genuine belief, I cannot trust a single thing I see online anymore. Every few minutes within a day, I find myself wishing for a blockchain solution to content that I find online so I can trace the provenance, right? I'm not able to do that. So I feel like I'm going crazy, living in multiple realities. One is a fake news reality. One is a hype reality. One is a doom and gloom reality. Like, there's so many realities. So blockchain, I believe, is at least going to ground us in the sense that we can trace where the content is coming from. Is it coming from AI? Is it coming from a human? Sorry for taking so much time. I'm very passionate about this topic.
No, I think you highlighted a very important topic and a very important idea. And yes, that seamless transition of solutions, so that, you know, users don't even realize they're kind of changing their way of life, changing the way they see their identity. All right, let's pivot to the organizational side of things. Ilia, compliance is a very critical piece of this puzzle that is the crypto landscape. What are some of the most effective strategies for organizations to stay on top of KYC and AML regulations? And for those tuning in, don't be bogged down by the abbreviations. KYC stands for Know Your Customer, and AML is anti-money laundering. And these are the regulations that Ilia will share his insights on.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to just touch on what Nadja said, and I totally agree on the fact that today, it used to be that what you have to see something to believe it. That was like the ultimate proof. Like, I see that person talking, and that for a while was kind of a replicated standard as well. Like I said, like the regulation was a replicated standard. If you can see it online, I can believe it. Well, that's no longer the case. And unfortunately, that basically undermines any sort of trust in the digital space, which is unfortunate. That's why we're talking about these new technologies, not only because of the privacy, but because we have a real problem to solve, even without touching on privacy. Another point I wanted to make is that, that always has to be horses for causes, right? What you're trying to solve for. If people are onboarding to a centralized exchange, which everything is regulated. If it's centralized, look, they expect to submit the real documents to pass through the phone. They're not expecting to have privacy, and that's okay. You don't expect privacy when you come to a bank or to any other sort of brokerage or other financial service. So I think people realize that there are cases when they can and should absolutely share their identities, and there are cases where they don't want to, or where they want to use tools that will allow them much more flexibility to keeping certain things private and maybe not disclose everything about themselves, but only what's necessary. The interesting thing is that the technology, I think, is actually more or less available. There's zero knowledge technology, verifiable credentials. Like, there's a lot of this infrastructure that actually exist there. So you don't need to create something new. It's just that question of how do you link the real world needs, one of which is compliance and AML and KYC, all these fancy terms, and sort of what the use case is. So I think that's where the gap is today. So technologies exist. They're not very much widely used because they're very siloed. Adoption is low. The regulatory implication of them is very unclear. So touching on KYC and ML, right? If you use any of these technologies like zero knowledge proof or anything else, basically from a regulator's point of view, it's it doesn't mean anything. Somebody verified some credential cryptographically, but what does it actually mean? I don't know. I want you to retain a document. Sorry for that. So that's the first thing we need to understand. But I think there is a way to bridge that. It was mentioned before, like we work a lot with crypto companies, so I think we're probably one of the biggest players, certainly in the crypto space, more generally working mostly with centralized businesses. But the Web3 space for now remains kind of outside of the regulation. Most of the laws right now say, well, if it's DeFi, unhosted wallets, it's okay. We don't need to implement KYC. We don't need to implement travel rule. But in reality, we all know that the circle is closing, and one way or another, there will have to be some connection between these two worlds. And I think there are ways to bridge that. We're doing something like this where we are effectively allowing people to reuse their real world identities that can be centrally stored securely and where they have control, but to have an extension of that real world identity into the Web3 space so that whenever there is any regulatory need from that end, they can go back to us, get access to these documents, get access to the real profile. So kind of combining the best of two worlds. It's all early days, but we are already empowering thousands of people for now to be able to reuse their real world compliant identities with the Web3 infrastructure.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think like I am on a centralized exchange. I've done a KYC. That does give me some sort of some sort of safety measure, possibly. But yeah, the regulation in crypto, I think it's a broad topic, and everybody has their own opinion of being pro regulation, anti regulation. But I really like how you said that we sort of have to bridge these two worlds. All right. So now we're going to unpack a very broad topic. And the topic is the challenges and opportunities in redefining digital identity across privacy, personalization, and compliance. And each of our speakers will share their insights on the topic based on their expertise. Ilia, I'd like to start with you. Could you shed some light on the challenges of maintaining compliance, along with some solutions that organizations can use?
Well, that's a long list of challenges that you can have. I mentioned the challenge of regulation, of being kind of up to date with technology and where things are going. So regulators need to catch up. There's a geographic challenge and a challenge of sort of synchronization of the various regulations around the world. So if you're, especially in the Web3 space where you're operating sort of without borders, but if anywhere you need to touch the compliant world, then they're very different and disparate regimes. People have used that in the past for regulatory arbitrage, but that's becoming more and more difficult. So that's another challenge. I'd say the adoption of whatever technology is available also remains a challenge. So whatever perfect or great solution you come up with, if there are no users in that solution, both from a user point of view as well as the recipient point of view, then again, there's not much you can do. There's challenges with fraud, the current way of doing things, fraud and deep fakes, and just any type of, by the way, non-AI fraud. I mean, look, you real world today, you can very cheaply organize thousands and thousands of people from underdeveloped countries to participate in fraud rings and defraud people. No AI involved, but because it's so easy and cheap to do that, you can fraudsters can with very, very limited budgets, thousands of dollars, wreak, millions of dollars of damage to businesses. So all of these, are challenges to building the future that we want to build, which is decentralized, private, in the control of the users.
And some solutions of how we could tackle that, or like you said, is it still early days? Are we
Sure.
still?
No, look, I mean, you basically tackle everyone, one by one. And so with AI, we like to say we fight AI with AI. We use AI tools to detect deepfakes, to detect fraudulent documents, to detect fraudulent networks. All of these can actually be done quite successfully, even with today's tools. It's always a tug of war, but you can work to that. In terms of regulation, look, actually regulation is being, better and better harmonized. MiCA coming into play in less than a month in Europe, obviously. So I think that's creating a framework for businesses and crypto businesses around the world to align themselves to. That's another solution. And then, governments are working on ways to bring their regulations up to speed with EIDAS 2.0 and the EU digital identity wallet projects in Europe. So I think there's basically a tool for everything. And like I mentioned, even in today's world, we are building effectively compliant reusable identity tools for the crypto space for Web3, which some of our customers can use even today. So that's where we are.
Yeah, that sounds really hopeful. And yes, definitely early days. And as more countries embrace the Web3 ecosystem, I'm sure we can see a lot more solutions from the community. One way I'd like to bring you into this, could you address the challenges of balancing personalization with privacy? And what are the solutions where Web3 and AI can be used effectively without compromising security?
Thanks a lot for the question. I think I would like to comment on one point that Nadja mentioned just now. She says that fundamentally, Nadja is like a human advocate, like, the human rights and human advocate, right? And recently, I've been thinking a lot about this topic, especially in terms of human nature. So let me link it back to Sumsub's research paper. So interestingly, in the research paper, there were numbers on how cheaply it is to create a deep fake software as a service. So when I met the actual researchers at Sumsub and they told me about it, I was mind blown because I was like, wow, that is a very innovative business model from people who are not very ethical in terms of mainstream definition. So my question to them then was, why don't they just create, instead of deep fakes, why don't they just create digital twins of themselves and do it in a ethical manner? So ultimately, the answer is that it comes down to dollars and cents and the top line. People just want to make a lot of money within a short period of time. And that really got me thinking about human nature. So going back to your question, right? It's like I think to find a balance requires first a knowledge of human nature. For example, if let's say a person has a person vulnerability in loneliness, and suddenly there are like a flood of AI girlfriends and boyfriends software as a service online, would they not give their most intimate and personal information to this bot? So you see, ultimately, right, I think how do we balance this thing about personalization, privacy, and AI things going around is the knowledge that human beings have vulnerabilities. AI agents slash bots do not have vulnerabilities in the human sense. And the more we feed the AI agent or the AI bots with human vulnerabilities, the more these AI allies or bots or agents can exploit the human vulnerability. So fundamentally, to balance it still goes back to self-awareness and the human being, whether they know themselves or not, and whether they know their human vulnerability or not. Give you another example. I've been in the crypto space professionally since 2017, but I started in 2014 for the crypto stuff. Have I been scammed in those really ridiculous scams before? Answer is yes. Like, those really dumb scams, like if you send 3 ETH to the other party, they will send you 6 ETH back. I have been scammed before. Like, so people are mind blown also. Like they are going like, how is it possible that you get scammed when to this kind of stupid like logical frauds? The answer is social engineering. So when I was scammed, I wasn't paying attention, and to me, 3 ETH then was like just $500. So I just sent the 3 ETH without thinking because someone told me to. So the point here is to realize, for users to realize that getting scammed is not about intelligence. Having your data and your privacy infringed is not about intelligence as well. It is just being very human, and the knowledge of your vulnerability gets more and more important as time passes. So having that awareness is very important moving forward if we want to talk about balance. And as human beings, we should all be aware that we are all human beings, and be open that we are also vulnerable to all these. Yeah.
Thank you for really breaking that down and looking at the psychological perspective, the vulnerabilities of human beings. It sounds a little scary, and it does sound a little worrisome. But I guess exploiting human vulnerabilities is a tale as old as time, and just the technology changes. Um, and now let's hear from our final panelist. Nadja, could you share your insights as to the challenges that you see in user adoption and education in decentralized identity systems, and what the possible solutions could be as well?
I'm going to draw a parallel to, again, a real world conversation that is, or situation, I guess. Not much of a conversation, that's the issue. A real world situation that's currently happening. If you live in the US, you might have heard about this, you might have not heard about this. If you don't live in the US, chances are probably quite high that you haven't heard about this. However, if you are currently in New Jersey, in New York, in Philadelphia now, and in parts of California, there are large, small car-sized unmanned drones of unknown origin in the skies and have been for a week over US military bases. Now, if you have not heard about this, to me, that's shocking because I've been following it. Similarly, it's shocking to me in Web3 if people have not onboarded into Web3. But we can use the exact same example with something else in the news that I am not following. You guys could be saying to me, man, this is huge news. I can't believe you haven't heard about this. But I haven't. And similarly, it's the same with every technology out there. Now, in terms of Web3, in terms of the challenges and the opportunities, we are really, really early. And I hate this. I hate saying this. It irritates me because I am not early. I've been here for 7+ years. I'm not early. Like I've been here like half my career. That's a long time to me, right? But we are early because the Bitcoin white paper came out in 2008. So that's like, I mean, it's a drop in a bucket. I was an adult then, and I'm an adult now. So and I haven't been an adult for that long, right? So timeline-wise, I think that as humans, we tend to forget that problems are not created in one generation, and problems are certainly never fixed within one generation. I mean, I would love to live in a world where that's possible. What we typically deal with from generation to generation is as technology advances, as science advances, as even, some form of formalized ethics, whether secular or religious, evolves, we have adjustment periods, right? Where we are adjusting to, I mean, look at the Gen Z generation right now. They have inherited a weird climate situation by any account, right? Whether you believe in climate change or not, I advise you to believe in it. I mean, that's my personal opinion, but you don't have to believe in it. Again, the Gen Z generation, they don't really care if you believe in it or not. They will still need to deal with the consequences, right? So I think that problems have been created in previous generations because of the circumstances of that generation, and those legacies are inherited. And now we've come to Web3. You know, when I came into Web3, I was very naive, really naive. I thought I knew everything, but I was super naive about what's actually going on in the world. The reason that I understood what's happening in the world is because Web3 presented solutions. And I was like, hey, what is this a solution for? I didn't even know there was a problem here. So what we are doing is we are putting a spotlight, right? We are trying to be innovative, to find creative, decentralized, technological solutions to problems that we've been facing for a long time. Now, in the process of doing so, we are creating new problems. But again, that's just a cycle in the circle of life, right? So I think ultimately, you know, there's a lot of challenges here. And I think we've really, by the way, Ilia and I think One Way has stolen all my lines. So I have nothing else to say about challenges and opportunities. You've covered everything. So we have a lot to work on, right? We have a lot of work to do. But the question is then, I mean, is it worth it? Right now, we are watching, I don't know, P. Diddy and Jay-Z on TV. That's very entertaining, but should you also maybe be watching other things to inform you about tomorrow? Noella, you said that it's a scary future. It is. I mean, let's be honest, it is a scary future. You'd be kind of strange if you didn't feel at least a little bit scared. But what keeps me going is the fact that we are all human, and so we are literally all in this together. And so we might fight. It's like, you know, brother and sister or siblings fighting. But then if there's an external threat, like, we're going to have to come together. So I think that Web3 has been doing that. It's been rallying the troops. It's been, you know, herding everyone together, saying, hey, you don't have to stand by the cliff ready to fall off. Maybe you can move a little bit closer and understand that there's not a cliff everywhere. There's also, you know, kind of safe space in the middle of it. So yeah, a lot of challenges, a lot of opportunities, but ultimately a lot of work for all of us. So I guess we have to get back to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really nice note that you ended on. WAGMI, we're all gonna make it. You know, whatever the struggle and whatever the challenge, there's always a solution, especially when we come together as a community. Um, I want to thank all our speakers. You know, you'll have really broken down complex concepts into very snackable ideas in a short, you know, time frame. You've made this discussion really educational for all our viewers. Now, over to our audience. Please let us know if you have any questions for our speakers. And we've had a lot of comments, you know, that are going throughout. So thank you so much for engaging. Um, let's have one question for our speakers, and while we wait, please follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, Altcoins, so that you don't miss out. Okay, we have a question from Lauren. How can the future of digital identity address the growing concerns about surveillance and data misuse? Panelists, any one of you all can take this question.
I will start in case someone else has something more positive to add. I think that while, you know, decentralized technologies, generally speaking, address censorship resistance, you know, you can deplatform someone on Twitter or on LinkedIn. You can't deplatform them on a decentralized network where a government is not really able to access that network. However, we've also recently seen Telegram, and there was a whole thing there. So, you know, even that is a complex conversation. But I think in terms of surveillance, I don't really have much to say there that is hopeful. I think we live in a time of surveillance capitalism. I mean, there's enough information out there about, depending on how deep you want to go in. I would love to see any solution to this, frankly. And similarly, you know, with data misuse, if you've ever worked at a company, you know how easy it is for anyone's data to be misused and mishandled. So I'm not sure that there's an easy solution to these issues. I always start off with, let's talk about the problem. Because I feel like until you talk about the problem, you know, you're not going to get the solution. And for me, we're in the talk about the problem phase. Hopefully one of the other panelists has a more hopeful answer to this.
I would maybe add just one thing. I think when we talk about blockchain and Web3 and talking about lack of surveillance, I think it's almost almost like an oxymoron, right? All of your transactions are publicly traceable, and your only right to anonymity is that nobody knows what your wallet is. But I think that is being eroded very quickly. So I think for better for worse, let's just get used to the fact that actually more of your activities are traceable in different ways, but they are. But I do think that as we are moving to more digital first, digital native solutions, I think there will be less data spillage in general. So give you like a short example, right? A lot of our clients are using what we call non-doc solutions when people can identify themselves by logging into a government, authenticating a government database with just digital data coming from a reliable source. So there's no sending of a picture of a document with extra data that might not be needed. It cannot be reused in the same way elsewhere. So I think, as the adoption of these sorts of techniques and more even Web3 first, zero knowledge proof and other verifiable credentials is higher and higher. Look, it will help reduce some of this, but it will certainly not eliminate this for good, because like the adoption of those will, A, it will take a long, long time, and B, you still will have people using kind of the old school methods of sending their passport and their face, and that will result in leakage.
I'll just add on quickly one quick point. 1 month ago, I was in Beijing, China, and I think there's a need to distinguish between problems and pain points, because very few shops in Beijing accept cash right now, like physical fiat cash. Everything is online, and personally, as a tourist, then I did not have like Alipay. I did not have any of the digital payments, and it was so hard to get someone to accept fiat money. So my point is that I don't think my Chinese friends or Chinese residents see it as a pain point. In fact, they see it as very convenient. And the more they don't really care whether there's surveillance or not. It's just convenience. So I think ultimately it's a trade-off for convenience, between convenience and whether you're monitored or whether your money flow can be tracked by a centralized or decentralized authority. Yeah, I just wanted to put it out there because it doesn't seem like it's a problem to Chinese living in China. So I was just wondering how, let's say, governments or maybe even scarily some Web3 projects, if they make, or I mean centralized Web3 projects, if they make money flow so easy, right, or so convenient, would it be possible that people don't care anymore, which defeats the first principles and the very purpose of Web3? Yeah, that's just a thought for everyone.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering that question and sharing your insights. So, what's next, folks? Please scan the QR codes on your screen. Follow our panelists and their companies to keep up with all the wonderful things that they're doing in the space, and really involve yourself in this wonderful Web3 community. And a reminder to also apply for Web3 Voices and join our thought leadership community. Um, Please scan and follow Altcoin Observer on social media. We have another amazing episode of Web3 Explained lined up for you on December 16th next week. So please stay tuned. To all our panelists, Wanwei, Nadja, Ilia, thank you so much for sharing your time and your energy, your invaluable experience. I think for all of us listening in, it was an absolute privilege to learn from each one of you. And I'm sure everyone has really benefited from your insights.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, especially One Way, Ilia, Noella. Just an amazing discussion, curated by you, participated in by you, guided in by you. I was really privileged to share in this. We've got a road ahead, but I think with the caliber of people in this room, we're getting there, and we will at least achieve some of the hopeful ideals that we've set ourselves to. So thank you for sharing this space with me, and for everyone who's out there watching live or after the fact, thank you for sharing like a lot of your precious time to listen to us talk, and hopefully there are things that you could get out of that. But even if I think I speak for myself only, but I'm sure the other panelists would mimic this. If there's questions that arise from this conversation, please feel free, even if you just comment on the LinkedIn post. We're very happy to dive into this at some point if we have a chance. Thank you, Noella.
I'd
Thank
like to say
you.
one last word, right? I'll just like to do a shout out to Nadja, because I only found out on this panel that Nadja was like as a finalist for YREX, like inspiring women, right? And it ends tonight. So everybody, please vote for Nadja because she actually walks the talk, and I've seen multiple like verifiable instances that she has really helped women out. And diversity is so important in Web3 and AI. So please vote for Nadja. We're gonna get, because I just found out, so we're gonna get the AI Visionary Society folks to vote for Nadja as well. So everyone listening, please scan this QR code, vote for Nadja, and do it now because it ends tonight. Good job, folks.
I want you to have the last word, but I just have to get the last word and say this is why One Way is incredible. I think she's demonstrated herself in real time, so definitely do follow her.
Thank you. Let's vote for each other. Vote for Nadja, please. Thanks for everything tonight. It's very, very cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And hope to see you at events where Altcoin Observer is going to be media partner. And let's hope for a very fruitful 2025. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.